All righty, good morning out there. Let me kind of make one adjustment here. Okay, I believe I did it. But anyway, happy Friday morning. Welcome to our DRT or Gold Standard leadership call that we're doing on Fridays. Let me give you a little bit of just a quick overview of what I'd like to do today. Obviously, we're heading into Christmas week, and I certainly want to wish every one of you and your families a Merry Christmas. I want you to know how grateful and thankful that I am that you are at our company, and many of us have some incredible relationships that man, we've fought hard together, and I love that about you. I love you showing up on our Friday calls. I've really made no, I guess, secret about it. This has always been kind of one of my favorite times of the year. Outside of holidays and family, I've really used this time between Christmas and New Year's to focus, number one, to really reflect on the last year. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. I also used it as a time to spend some closet time or some alone time on working more than on my goals, right? Everybody's got goals, so I don't talk about that a lot. But I wanted to really spend some time and say, Barry, what are you committed to, right? And make sure that I wasn't setting myself up for failure or the people that I'm working with. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. As you go into the year, I think over the last 2.5 months, I think we've worked very hard. I think we've had some very transparent conversations about leadership, about what our goals are going into 25 and so forth. And so one of the things that I do want to do, and I wasn't going to do this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our bonus program today. And you're probably not going to hear me hardly ever mention it for the next 12 months, okay? Because I don't think that is the key to anything, quite honestly. I think that if you're willing to do some things, that bonus program is going to mean a lot to you, but it's going to mean a lot to a few people, not a lot of people, right? And so, but I want to give you the benefit of, as I was working and crafting and testing and running models on this over the last 2.5 months, I want to give you the benefit of my thinking. And maybe it will help you as you're building your organization and building your team. And then I want to conclude today, and I want you to go out there next week and maybe get business off of your mind a little bit and have an incredible Christmas Eve and Christmas. And then I am going to host a special call on Monday, the 30th. There was just no way, as I told JB, that I wanted to wait until January the 6th or whatever that following Monday is. I mean, 25% of January's gone, right? We only have 4 weeks or 4 quarters in the ball game. And I don't want, and there's no way with what we've got at stake this year and what the opportunity for so many people that we're going to miss the first quarter, right? We're not going to do that, right? I mean, so I'm going to host a special call on the 30th, and it's really not going to be a DRT call. So I would invite, all of Equus to be on it. I would get your teammates on it. And we're just going to talk about mindset and jumping in and going for it. I had a conversation early this morning with another managing partner that's not associated with Equus Financial, and I was talking about just the freedom, right? When you decide to put that convertible top down, man, and you just start going for it, right? and what freedom it is to be able to look in that mirror at the end of every day, and every day is not going to be maybe from a number standpoint a great day, but you're locked in and you're doing all you can do to grow your business, and there's a lot of freedom in that. So anyway, let me get started. I'm going to look at a lot of notes today. Because I've given a lot of thought to this call, and so I want to start about reflection. I would look back at 2024, and I would be very, very candid with yourself, right? I mean, I think the key is being honest, and I would reflect back on what went well for you, which you were very happy with, right? And I'm sure all of us can look and say, these are the things in my personal life, in my business life that I'm very happy with. And I just want to continue to get better at those, and I want to grow and in those things. And then I would, on the other side of it, I would look at what did not go the way that you anticipated, and what you were unhappy with. And then what I always wanted to do when I got there is I wanted to do a deep, dead gum dive on why didn't it go well, right? What were the factors that contributed for me not winning, for me not scoring, right? Um, and I think that's important, because I want to say this, and you know this, but there's nothing more difficult. There's nothing more difficult than change. Changing your habits is almost impossible. You understand that? Changing your habits, when you look globally, it's just almost impossible, right? So when you go in to 2025 and you're sitting there and you're writing your commitments down or your goals, or and I want you to be really specific about some of this, okay? In fact, about all of it, because it's worth being specific about. But at the end of the day, and it's where we started at the middle of October, that we're going to talk about a gold standard, and we're going to talk about all of that stuff. But ultimately, every single thing rises and falls on you, right? And it's why our second core value is so key to me, right? And I've said this on this call. It's one of the things I believe missing in our country today is you got a bunch of mealy mouths always out there blaming it on everybody else. And it's just so few people in America today that just own the situation, right? And it doesn't make any difference if somebody done screwed you and all of that stuff. That's just life. That's the way it is. But what I love about Equus and what I love about Air Guidelines and Air Bonus Program is, you can have a asshole for a manager, and we got a couple of them, right? You can have one. But you know what? That doesn't make any difference, because if when you take ownership, you can rise above anything and everything if you are willing to change. So when I reflect, I want to get down to, Barry, are you willing to change, right? Are you willing to create more activity? One of the things that I haven't talked a lot about, and I think it's a great time to talk about it, when you're starting your business, um, and you really want this to be your year, you've got to front load. Write that word down for me, man. You got to front load everything. You got to front load your activity. You got to front load your energy level. You got to front load sacrifices by not being able to go on as many vacations, right, initially. But what you're doing, and see, they're the guys, listen to me, they're the things out there that most people aren't willing to sacrifice to just be able to leapfrog and have a great business, right? It's that discipline financially, right? It's not going out there and spending a bunch of money. It's just saving your money and paying off your credit card. I want to say this to you. I've talked to a lot of people the last 2 weeks. I made it a personal project, talked to a lot of people that I think are busting their fannies and they're working and they want to win, right? I mean, when you talk to them, it's an emotional conversation because they want to win so bad that they're just emotional about it. And I reflect back, right? I reflect back to when we started our company, and I think of our two primary goals, and I want you to listen to me. One of them was to get out of debt, right? Not to be a deadgum slave to credit cards and house payments and car payments and all that shit. I mean, the stuff that don't matter, right? I'm going to take ownership of, and I got to tell you something. If I've heard one thing over the last 2 weeks from a lot of different people at a lot of different levels, and we talk about it all the time. And the reason I talk about it all the time, because I went through it for so many years and I know how I felt and I know how debilitating and what it made me feel like as a leader, right? As a husband, as a father, right? Just, I mean, all of that stuff, you just eat your guts out, right? And it's debt. And I had a bunch of leaders that were honest with me. I mean, good people, right? High performing people. They say, Barry, nothing out there has affected my personal ability to recruit and to lead and to go build an organization and do things the right way because I've been in debt. And it's just eat my guts out, right? And I think about that little green book of yours that you talk about all the time that you had to go fix you. See, I don't know where all of you are in that show up on Fridays. I don't know where all of you are, but I know this, that you got to be willing when you're sitting there working on your commitments and what you want to do, you got to be willing to fix you, right? You got to be willing to be cash flow positive. And I got to tell you something. I don't know of anything any more important. And I said it last week, right? We had a bunch going on last week. We had Pete Lee on last week. We had Crystal Patello on last week. But that first 10 or 15 minutes that I was talking with you, there's nothing. If you go back and talk about that, right? You got to increase your activity. Okay. So the big change is this. Are you going to be willing to go to work? Is Barry going to be willing to go to work? And you're going to have the same problem on January the 2nd that you had on December the 30th, that you had on November the 28th, or whatever, right? You're going, right? All of us going to have the same problems. And see, I want us to have a maturity about who we are as leaders, right? I want us to be solid citizens. I want us to be mature leaders. I want us to face adversity head on, right? I want us to be able to huddle up on Fridays and have tough conversations, right? Because winning is tough, right? And it's just worth it, though. I mean, it's worth it for most of us, right? And if it's not worth it, then I wouldn't get on this call, right? It's going to be a bad call for you, right? Heck, you know what I'm saying, right? I like you on the call, but I want you to be on because you want to win. I just don't want you to be on because you think you're supposed to do something, right? That's not what this call is about. But what I said last Friday is this. You want to double your business, double your activity. You want to grow by 30%, double your activity, or go grow your activity by 30%. But you got to be calculated about the way that you do that, right? Now, if it's me, I think the smart way to do it, and see, this is a priority. This is like every day you got to do this. I'd go out there and buy a bunch of $3 leads, and there's a bunch of that stuff out there, and I'd find out where they are. I would be able, to have non-resident license everywhere that you can have them. I think that's the way that you go do it. And see, here's the thing about this stuff, right? I've been doing this so long, you can't BS me on what works and what doesn't work. If you work, the system works, right? And you know that, right? I've seen so many people over the last 2 or 3 or 4 months that have upped their phone calls, upped their dials, done all of that stuff, and their business has started to take off, right? But they had to do it. I always talk about the way I got in the mortgage business. When I got in it, 1994, um, I ended up, they used to append about 25 or 30% of the data that they mailed, they would have phone numbers for. And so what I did for the first 2, 3, 4 months, I forget what it was, but it seemed like about 2, 3, 4 years, I would have to dial people that didn't respond and try to set an appointment. And I didn't like that, but I got good at that, right? And maybe out of every 32, 33 dials, I'd set an appointment. And finally, I worked my way up to where I could get to good leads, right? But see, you got to find people, man, that are hungry, that are willing to do that kind of thing. And they're out there, by the way. They're out there. But here's when you find them. When you're cash flowing, right? And I want to say this for a lot of you, I don't think there's any higher priority than getting your cash flow where it needs to be. Okay. That just getting finances out of your mind. I told one guy, and I'm sure he's probably listening today. And, he was sitting there saying, man, I'm going to knock my debt out in 3 or 4 months. I said, no, you're not, man. Don't set yourself up for crap like that. Right. Because you're just going to be disappointed. Right. I said, you'd be a stud, right? If you could go knock this thing out on over 36 months or 3 years, right? And I think we ended up settling on a couple years. And I have no doubt this guy's unbelievable, right? That he's going to be able to go do that, right? But don't try to do Superman stuff, because none of us are Superman or Superwoman, right? We've got a couple in the company, but there's not many of us, and I'm not certainly one of them. So be honest with yourself, and then and this is you, and man, I know there's so few people. I'm probably talking to 8, 9, 10% of the people today that are actually willing to change. Okay. I will say this to you. I don't think you have a great personal life and a bad business life. I don't think you have a great business life and a personal life. I think they go hand in hand, and I know that, right? And so, when you start talking about change, man, we're talking about change from within, right? I mean, I believe you got to be a great person to win long term. I believe you just got to, man, you know what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Set a standard for yourself. We've talked about that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but set a standard for yourself. And I just want to challenge you. I want to challenge me too, right? I'm talking to me on some of this stuff. Man, let's uphold our standard. We built an incredible, I mean, we together. I don't think there's anybody out there, and I feel this way, and I genuinely feel this way, is that there's been anybody that's built a better company than what we've built out there, right? Now, do I think we met our potential in 24? No, and I'm very disappointed in that. I own that 100%. Do I take ownership of that? And I'm also taking 100% ownership, but we're gonna meet our potential in 2025. But let's keep our standards in every single way up here, right? So I think that's important. I've given you this a lot, but I want you to write it down. Even if you've written it down, I need you to remember this, that if you're going to achieve your goals in 2025, okay, we talking like you're gonna do it right today, okay? You've got to be, as a business male, female, right? If you're going to do it, you've got to be very strategic in every move you make in business. Okay. So if all of a sudden, let me just give you an example. Let's just say you're out there working, man, right? And you're creating momentum and you got a lot of good things going on. And then all of a sudden a holiday comes up and it knocks you out 3 or 4 days. You got to be strategic in your communication, in your activity, in your coaching, right? Because what you're doing, I want to go back to this. And you got to think about it from an investment standpoint in your business. Everything that most of you are going to do in 2025 is I'm going to constantly be challenging you to front load your activity, front load your investment dollars into leads, front load your investment dollars into recruiting. If you don't have as much discretionary income at the end of the month, know that's the way that it's supposed to be, right? And so when I talk about living mean and lean, right? When I talk about that, I want you to have a lot of cash flow to keep fueling the fire that's growing, right? Maybe you're running a contest for you and your team, right? But you want to have liquid cash. I don't want you in debt. You don't have to go out there and borrow a bunch of money. You know, I took a letter. I came in and Holly had gone to the mailbox and she had my mail and I was sitting there going and reading something. And probably, gosh, now maybe 15 years ago, there was this bank that started in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I had me and a bunch of my buddies, we were some of the original investors in that bank. So, you know, I get a dividend check maybe off that bank every couple of a couple times a year, whatever. So anyway, I was looking at it and I was reading it real quickly. And this particular regional bank has offices throughout Lynchburg, Roanoke, Virginia, Danville, just different places within about 100-mile radius. This past year, they've gone out and opened a bunch of them up in North Carolina. But here's my point. Here's my point. I took this letter into Holly because she hears me talking about what an incredible business this is, right? and and the potential and the spreads of our business are like nothing else. And it just saddens me when people don't understand that and they treat it like it ain't nothing, right? And here it is, you know, one of maybe the only $1 trillion industry out there in the country today. Um, and people don't treat it that way because they didn't go out there and put $1 million or $2 million into it. And I told Holly, I said, I want you to look at this letter. And I said, because I talk about this stuff all the time, and she hears me talking all the time with you about it, right? And I said, this bank's probably got 15, 18 different branches. Okay, 15, 18 different branches. And you know all the real estate and the big buildings and all that stuff. And I said, they've been in business now for 15, 16, 17 years, ever how long it's been. And they're talking about what a great year they had last year. And I'm not going to tell you the dollar amount, but I said, little old Equus Financial. And they were given their net earnings, right? It was unaudited net earnings. And I said, we make more money every 3.5 months than this bank makes on their net earnings. And I could just, she said, I can't even believe that. Because you drive by and you see all these big buildings and everything in little low Equus, right? We kick our butt when it comes to making money. And so I always want you to grasp that. I want you to know what you're fighting for. So when I start talking about being strategic, understand that you're going to build this business on overrides, right? That 80% of your people are going to probably be part-time, that you're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 studs or you know, that rise to the occasion. But understand what every sales manager means to you. Understand what every regional manager means to you from an ROI standpoint. If you've been a good leader and you've got somebody out there running their own business that's self-sufficient, whether you talk to them once a month or once a year doesn't even make any difference, right? Because they're the right kind of leader that believes in their core values, that's built a solid business, that shows up on DRT, that attends meetings, right? That treats their people the right way, that leads by example. Right? They're leading by example and making money. They got a smile on their face, man. They don't show hurt in front of their people, right? They show up every day giving everything they've got. See, that's what we want to build at Equus, right? That's who I want showing up at the Greenbrier on the 20th. I don't want everybody showing up, right? I want those people showing up because you know what we're going to talk about at the Greenbrier? 100% of it is going to be how do you duplicate transferable techniques and grow that kind of business, right? That's what we're going to do. We're not going to talk about selling. We got a couple carriers that are going to be there that are two of our top carriers, right? And you know that because we're bonusing you, giving you bonus credit of 110%. So that's going to be Mutual of Omaha and Americo. And they're there because they're going to be talking about that. So if we had a lot of people that wanted to come that we're not allowing to come, right? So, but understand that, commit to certain things, commit to having Thursday night op meeting filled up, right? Commit to having so many ICAs, commit to producing so many sales managers. And you say, well, man, I've just been struggling. But here's the thing. I want to go back to point number one we started with that. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to take ownership of it, right? You can't just when things don't work out, just accept them. Losing becomes such a habit. Expectation becomes such a habit, right? So many people that jump on this call, I'm looking at you, man, in the past just haunts you. It just destroys your spirit, right? And that's the reason I always say I was in this business 14, 15 years before I really had any success, any at all, right? But I had front loaded 13, 14, 15 years, man. I mean, just dying, not understanding, just hating it, right? Quitting 1,000 times a day. But I was learning the business. And all of a sudden, when my opportunity came along in 1997, 1980, man, I just took off like Apollo, right? And because I had all that invested time and I didn't realize it, but I'd learned a lot. I'd become pretty dadgum smart at this. And that's what you have to understand. And it's why you got to show up and love it every day. And you can't veer off track. And, anyway, I hope you understand it, right? So you got to think, but here's the key. You got to focus constantly. You can't, and see, that's the key of being tough, right? Because you're going to get a lot of distractions from other people. And I hate to say this, and I don't like to, man, when it comes to family and stuff like that, you don't hear me talk much about that. But all of us have got a lot of distractions, right? We kind of going through a thing right now. My parents, 88 years old. In fact, she's having surgery. My mother's having surgery today. Been in the hospital since last Friday. In fact, I think I was getting calls during last Friday's call that the rescue squad was picking her up. And I hate that. I hate that, right? And every morning I get up before I come to the office and I make sure I go spend, an hour and a half, 2 hours with her, right? But here's my point, and I don't know how to say this, but because that's going on, it don't mean everything else I get a pass on, right? I still have a company that I got to run. I got to show up and lead, right? Because all of us have that stuff. All of us have that. And it never will stop as long as we're on this earth. And I hear people because, this happens and it's tough. And I don't get involved and tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And there's some times that you can't show up, right? But about 99.9% of the time when you show up, everything, the world's not going to stop. And it doesn't stop. But I don't know how to have that conversation. I'm not qualified for that. But you can count on this. I'm going to keep showing up as long as I'm on this planet and I'm at Equus and I'm going to fight, right? And so some of you like to send me emails and texts and tell me you can't do this, and don't do it. Just don't do it. Because I'm going to start telling you my problems, okay? And I'm damn sure you don't want to hear them any more than I want to hear yours. Okay, so you got to do that. Okay, now, let me give you the benefit of our bonus program. Okay, let me talk about what went on in my mind when we were creating our bonus program, and it's pretty simple. Is this too tough for y'all today, or is this okay? I see some of you, you look like dead gummit. I mean, okay, just every now and then smile at me or something. Right, okay, here we go. Okay, so when you look at our bonus program, here was my thinking. The personal producer bonus takes no explanation. There's no explanation, right? I don't need to explain anything about it. Here's the numbers. You go out there and attack it, and you can go out there and you know what the numbers are. And we tried at 20,000 and better, okay, 20,000 and up. We put more money out there, and because we don't have anybody, Jeff, any more important to us than their personal producers, right? So know that's what out there. But I don't need to talk about that. Okay, so you go out there and get all you can get. Mugs, you go get everything you can get out there, right? And I'm gonna be a cheerleader. We're gonna be clapping that you getting that. Now, at the RM level, okay, this is gonna be quick, but I want you to kind of grasp this. At the RM level, you don't have to do anything other than get unique writers. Lincoln, just unique writers, okay? And the more writers that you get, Lincoln, Corey, Eric, the more writers you get, then the more stable your business is going to be, right? So one of the things that we tried to do is I want strong leaders, because I think, Eric, I think when we quit expecting things to be tough from our leaders is when we're reducing their standard. So here was the thinking. You can come in Equus, you can go out there and build a team that produces what? 15 applications a week. 15 applications a week. You got to have 8 writers. You are included in one of them, right? And every time you do 70,000, we are going to send you a $2,000 bonus saying, way to go, right? For doing 15 apps a week. And you understand we have a lot. Hey, Mark, we have a lot of personal producers that do 12, 15, 16, 20 apps a week by themselves. Okay. So, but here's the thing I wanted to tell you, JB. I'm not trying in any way to say you got to go out here and be doing $100,000 a week to be successful with us. No, I think 80%, if I had a perfect model, right? Nothing's perfect. But boy, if I could create a perfect model, I would love to have 80% of our organization, because you can still be part-time and do this, running 70, 80, $90,000 a month, making $250,000 a year, overriding that business with your personal business, us sending you 35,000 a year in bonuses. I think that's a perfect model. Just loving life. I mean, loving life, right? And most everybody, if you're a crusader at heart, like I am, you know why I recruit people? You know why I'm magical around people? Because I love what we do, right? This business changed my life. I love talking about it. I love talking about the scale and the scope of it. I enjoy it. I'm a happy dude when I'm talking, right? Because it has happened for me. And when you're cash flowing, man, you're just going to recruit more people when you got a smile on your face, you know? And so I think that's so important, right? And that's the way, this business is caught much, much more than it's ever taught, right? It's just caught and it's electric and I love it, right? And so when I see people treat it casually and when I get on here and get a little excited, and I mean that, it's not personal. I just love it. I'm eating up with it, right? I'm just eating up with who we are and what we do and our opportunity. Then I feel like we've got this cure in America today. We got the cure for financial debt and disaster. And man, all you got to do is listen and follow what we do. I had an hour call yesterday, and I won't call their name, but somebody re-engaging with Equus, and they were talking this week about those 5 ladies on our call. and just how inspiring it was, right? Listening to them, right? And just because it was just contagious about who they are and what they do, and I agreed with them. So so at the RM level, now here's what you do, right? So you go up, listen to this, you do 10,000 more dollars in premium. So depending on if you're doing an IUL, a term, whatever you're selling, but let's just give the benefit of the doubt and say 7 or 8 more applications. You as a leader get 500 more dollars. So your bonus now goes up to 2,500. If you're doing your 20,000 goal standard out there and writing 20, you're getting another $1,000. So you can run a little business, get $3,500 a month in bonus, make over 40 grand a year just in your bonus money, no chargebacks on it. We're not talking about any annuities or retirement solution stuff. We're just talking about doing that. And I believe we've got an opportunity this year, and that's the reason I'm going to stay intense with you, and I'm going to almost beg you to stay plugged in and to learn how to leverage all of the Equus, learn how to leverage DRT, learn how to leverage the Thursday night op meeting, learn how to leverage all of our training videos. So every time, and we can laugh at this, but you know I'm telling you the truth. Every time you think you're smarter than us and you get an original thought, every time you start thinking and you say, man, I bet you I can do a bit. I want you to go in there and do a cold plunge. Okay. If I could get you a present and I was tempted to send all 272 of you on a call today, a cold plunge. And every time we get an original thought, we were going to go jump in the ice water, right? And get that crap out of our minds, right? Because we're going to follow the system. We're going to do things that are duplicatable. Okay. Now, to me, if I was sitting out there where you are and I was showing up, right? And somebody was showing me the Equus dream, because can I tell you something? Whether you like it or you don't, you know what we do at Equus? We sell a dream. That's what we do. We sell a dream to go out there and live a life you want to live and be a part of a great business that you can make a difference. But I want to tell you, if you were showing me this, and I believe, and that's what we're going to do some of this at the Greenbrier, I would not settle for anything under 100,000 in my base shop. Now, let me tell you the way I look at this. I never saw myself ever, even close to it, that we were going to run 1,000 applications a week. And if you would have tried to sell that to me, man, I would have, Eric Valdez, I'd have said, man, you don't know me. I'll screw that up so quick, right? But I'll tell you this. I was 20 years old when I attended my first op meeting. I left that night knowing I could do 25 applications a week. I may not be able to build much, but I can build a team that does 25 applications a week. And so here's what happens, okay? Don't miss this. At the RM level, all you got to do is go out there and you don't have to get into the producing of leadership. And your bonus is reflecting the value that you're bringing to the table. Does that make sense? Because here is what the Equus bonus, here's the way that I look at it. We're investing that $250,000 a month in building a business, because here's what I know. I'm looking at Cody Beck. So let's use Cody. If Cody's running the base shop, see, I think it's important you know how we look at this stuff. Cody's running the base shop, and then all of a sudden he's got 7, 8, 9, or, let's just say, Cody, you got to have 8. So let's just say Cody's got 10 or 11 personal producers. They're part-time. They show up at Cody's office. They're used to his leadership. They're doing all of that. They're plugging into Cody's knowledge. And Cody, I didn't even think about this. I just saw you use you as an example. But I was going to say, if Cody goes out there and gets run over by a truck, but Cody almost died during COVID, right? He almost died. So, and if Cody would have died, we wouldn't have been as great of a company as we are. And so, what you have to understand, if Cody's not duplicating and something happens to Cody, the odds are that business is going to fall apart. That's just the odds, because Cody's the papa. He's the papa in the business. It's his leadership. People are comfortable with him, right? And so we pay a bonus based on what you've created at a value. Now at the VP level, you've got to have one sales manager, which means I had to, as a coach, I had to identify the person that had the credibility. They had, I was going to say the intellect, but that sounds condescending. I didn't mean it that way. But they understood quickly how their value prop, right? If they could go out there, because you know what somebody told me, the best example. They said, Barry, if you're by yourself, you have 24 hours in the day, and nobody works 24 hours, right? If I had, 10 people, then I had 240 work hours, right? So I went from having 24 hours to work, that if I could develop a base shop or regional manager team, now I've got 240 workable man or woman hours every single day. So see, that's the way I like to explain stuff. So obviously I've got more potential to do more business because it's 240. If I've got 100 people, then I've got 2,400 hours, right? So anyway, okay, now at the VP level, you've got to have a sales manager, and in 99 times out of 100, it's a sales manager, not a regional manager. Follow me here. We're telling you that even if you only do 25 apps a week, and if you're writing IUL, which a lot of our business is, it is what? 10, 11, 12, 13 applications a week. Okay. So here's what you have to have. You got to have 12 writers. So you only got to have 4 more writers, but you got to have one of them that's developing into their own agency. Now the stakes go up. Now your bonus turns into to $5,000. And you say, well, Barry, I'm only doing a few more. I mean, remember, at 2,500, you're doing 80 apps, or 80,000, excuse me, in premium. You're only doing what, 10, 12, 14, 15 more apps, but all of a sudden your bonus doubles because, Steve Bedgood, you're duplicating yourself. So now if you go out there and get hit by that car, there's the business is still operational. And we at Equus feel like for us to be able to double our company in the next 12 months, we need a certain amount of people that see that, understand it, and say, you know what, Barry? I'm raising my hand. I'm in. Because I would love an opportunity not only to make 5,000, but to have that $2,500 bonus being added to it for what? Having 3 qualified sales managers, having 10 standing lead orders, and the leader leading by example, writing 5 apps a week, or 20,000 a month in premium. So now all of a sudden your bonus goes from 5,000 to 7,500. So what I'm trying to tell you, and you know what it is, right? So if you do 25,000, your bonus goes up $2,500. So now you go to 7,500. If you do 150,000, your bonus goes to $10,000 a month. So everything, okay, let's pause for just a moment. Everything you do, I want you to question yourself. I want you to question yourself. Is what I'm doing, are the words coming out of my mouth, are they duplicatable? Am I building something that I can transfer my skill set to other people? Or am I portraying myself, that nobody can keep up with me, that I'm the greatest? I'd never had that problem, but I also was smart enough to never want to portray that, because what I wanted to do was to be able to duplicate a lot of berries out there that saw what I saw. And that was the way that I would grow my business. It's the reason, I always use this example, and I got a couple of things. Hang with me because we got about 15 minutes, but I do have a couple of important things here. Great athletes. I always think of a Tiger Woods, okay? Probably most gifted golfer, at least in my lifetime, that I ever saw, right? Is probably a horrible teacher because his body can do things that most of our bodies can't do, right? So great athletes have a hard time relating, and some of the world's greatest coaches weren't the greatest people on the team. They were not the greatest at their sport. And, JB, you sent me a clip. I mean, the last one you sent me yesterday, I was thinking about Saban and that. And isn't it so true, right? This is part of your Eric strategic thinking. It's part of having an understanding of, okay, I'm getting it now, right? I'm getting it. So we're looking at the VP level. We really are encouraging you and want to help you and want to be right here in developing your sales managers, right? And so what's one of the greatest ways to do them? Get them in front of me on Fridays. Okay. You don't have to do it. I just want you to show up with them, right? When we're in Atlanta, show up with them, right? You got to bring them. The old saying goes, hog time and put them in a trunk. Just get them there. They'll thank you for it once they get there, right? Okay. Now, at the SVP level, there's a great message to you at the SVP level. Okay, great message. We don't count unique writers anymore. There's not a unique writer requirement at the SVP level. You've got to have, at the first level, you've got to have 2 regional managers. So I can tell you this, and I think you would agree. My every thought in business would be to help 2 people become regional managers. Because once you do there, you're still running your base shop or your regional manager team. If I was sitting here and I'm looking at John Schwartz right now and I'm looking at Jeff Geske, let's say those 2 guys I'd helped get them to regional manager. They did it, but we worked on it together, right? We were strategic. We worked on it together. So these guys out there, do you realize, let's view it as an asset. Okay. If John was out there and he's a regional manager, I can tell you, because I know the way I feel. Stay out of my deadgum business, man. I didn't got to, let me put my personality into it, right? I want to run it, right? And if I've done my job, man, if I talk to John, I may call John once a month. Really, I may call him once a month, may call him once a week, and it just depends on where he is, but I'm going to let him flourish. But do you understand my ROI on Schwartz? I could leave the country for 6 months, right? And I guarantee you my minimum override on that deal is probably 75 grand a year. If I've got Jeff over here, it's another 75 a year. And it's like, and I can tell you, it's a lot less. See, a lot of people go in and buy a bunch of real estate so they can go out there and get a bunch of residual income coming in every month, right? That's peanuts. That's change to the potential of putting your investment into people and helping them get there in their business. Okay. So what happens there, now the ball game changes, but it's the way we value things. So now what I'm looking at, I'm saying at the first level, do you understand between 24 this year and 25, we up that bonus $5,000 a month? So you produce two regional managers to show our value there that's 20 grand a month, $240,000 a year bonus for building two independent separate organizations that pay for 70,000 a month. Okay, you get the picture. All I wanted to do was give you to say when Barry was working on us 2.5 months, to give you the benefit of the way I look at our bonus program. And I got to tell you something. I'm probably not going to talk about our bonus program. I said it anymore this year. You know what it is. We'll talk about how to present it, but it's in front of you. So it's time to stop talking about it. We've talked about it for 2 weeks. So you see this right here? Look right here, right here. Done. I don't even want to talk about it. Don't want to see it. It's programmed in the computer. There we go. Okay, let's move on to something else now. Now, it seems like I'm using this as an example, but I think it's a great example. I'm going to ask you, if you're taking notes, to write down the word touches. Touches, Touches, right? Touches. I read this article and I heard him talk about it. And this is the part we could use the parallel of talking about activity. But one of the things that when Tiger Woods was winning all of his championships, he said, listen to this, this is deep, deep stuff. The week of my tournament, I had 1,000 touches a day of the club face touching the golf ball. 1,000 a day. It could have been 200 hitting irons and hitting my driver. The majority of the touches every day was chipping and putting. But he said, when I showed up on Thursday morning for the tournament, everything just felt right, right? Because I had 1,000 touches of that extension of that golf club in my hand and touching that ball. So Thursday, I was prepared. From a recruiting and standpoint, the big problem for almost everybody is you don't have enough touches every day. And when you don't have enough touches every day, you're not at your best when you show up on game day, right? And one of the things you're going to have to force yourself to do is don't make your report cards your personal production. Now, I don't want that to be a confusing message. I want you to just go out there and do your personal production. And I don't even want to talk about that, because you're just doing that because you're leading by example. You're taking care of your cash flow. You're paying your bills. Discussion over. Expect no accolades for it. If you do that and the other two gold standard requirements, we're going to send you 2,500. But let's you and I going into 25, let's elevate both of us that we're not talking about just givens of what you do. Let's spend our time talking about those touches on how I get very good at conveying the Equus opportunity. That becoming a sales manager is a multiplex income, right? Because now I'm taking what I know and I'm developing a team. I'm creating streams of income, right? And and we're going to spend a lot of that kind of time, candidly, in the Greenbrier, because we've got to be able to learn how to convey. We've got to make the number one thing. I'm going to ask you a question. When is the person the absolute most excited about the business? First 24 hours. I'm looking at him, and I think I'm right when I say this. Lincoln Anderson, who I'm looking at, recruited more people in the first week or two. That was right. Why? Because it was when he was the absolute most excited. And he's still excited. I'm not saying that. But what I'm telling you, let's talk about strategically. John Ray, I'm looking at you, right? If I went in, and here's my attitude 100% of the time. I go recruit John. John says, Barry, I've been looking for this all my life. Man, I'm so frustrated. John's got the perfect family. I mean, he's out there, right? He's doing all the right things. But you know what the businessman is saying on my shoulder right here? Hey, Barry, John's going to quit. John's going to quit. I'm analytical. I follow the numbers. I don't fall in love very easy. Okay. I don't fall in love easy, right? So here's what you shouldn't fall in love easy. So if I'm doing that with John as a leader, what's my number one responsibility of growth is I got to replace John. So in replacing John, I'm trying to talk to John about becoming a sales manager, not run leads. We'll get to that part of it. See, selling is my default. Most of you use selling as the main thing. That's the default. Okay. If you can't recruit, now everybody eventually is going to get in. But see, mentally, guys, I know this is tough stuff. But mentally, my goal is to help John recruit his three best buddies in the first week. Hey, Jimmy, if he doesn't have three best buddies, okay, that's telling me, and man, this is a toughie. If John doesn't have three buddies, he can call up and just say, hey, man, I'm gonna run across some, I want you to look at it. And I don't really give a rip what you think, you're gonna look at it. See, that's the way I talk to my buddies. My buddies talk to me that way, right? And I'd go out there and recruit three people like it. And if John doesn't have three buddies, it ought to be like sparklers going off. Hey, Barry, he's not your guy to work with. Because if he don't have three buddies, and this is a relationship business, and he's 42 years old, man, it'd be like Jesus turning the water into wine. It'd be about the same kind of deal right there, right? So you've got to understand, do work. See, that's what leaders do. Because now if John quits, hey, can I tell you something? If all of a sudden he goes out there and recruits Cody Beck, and he says, Barry, I've been thinking about this. My wife said, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'd say? I agree with the John. I don't think this is for you. You know why? Because I want Cody. Want to quit? Day's a good day, right? But if I don't replace John, then John, all of a sudden, I'm just hanging on to him for dear life. Can you imagine if all of us on this call today embrace our opportunity that way? That way? And then you start driving, because you can personally force your will, I promise you, on driving depth within the organization. But you got to be committed to the cause. You got to be committed to the game plan. You got to be committed to the play. And so we're now, when we show back up, we're going to have our call on 12:30. But when we show back up at following Friday, now we're going to start talking about how do I take John and help him become a sales manager within the first 90 days. I want to help you to produce a sales manager factory. I want you to, you got so many sales managers popping out, you don't even know what to do with them, right? And that can happen, but your thinking's got to be right on it, right? Hey, I love this stuff. I love working with you on it. I love help. We're going to get there, right? But do me a favor, use the next 10 days or whatever, flush all this bad stuff out. Let's show up on the 30th. Let's be ready to rock and roll. This is your last break. Okay. This is your last break because here's what we've got to do. I want us to work in 90-day, I'm going to call them, because I've called them this all my life, madman cycles. Man, don't be out there. Do me a favor. And see, now this is, I'm crossing the line here. Okay. I'm crossing the line. But don't be out there scheduling dead gum vacation or something the first 90 days, right? Don't be out there doing dumb stuff like that, right? We got to build momentum and get it rocking and rolling. Everything's going to lead in to May 20th and 21st. We're going to be blitzing to see how many people you can get to Atlanta on the 20th and the 21st and bring a bunch of those new bodies in there and get them in their leaders meeting, right? And let me get a hold to them for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, right? And start talking and talking about the potential of Equus, okay? That's the way we're going to grow. And then we're going to send them out and they're going to have a mission, okay? Let me tell you where our second hunter's going to kill me, okay? But let me tell you where our second meeting is going to be in June. April, May, yeah, there you go. There you go. April, May. In June, our second gold standard tour is going to be in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. So I want you to start thinking about that because it should start strategically telling you where you want your standing lead orders. Where am I focused in second quarter? Right? So we're going to be doing a lot of this kind of work. But anyway, hey, heard enough of me today. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for allowing me to talk with you and coach and be a part. But I'm telling you, 2025, we're going to rock and roll, man. I'm jacked about it. Have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy your family, your loved ones. Refresh your soul, man, and your mind and your spirit. And when we show up next time, let's be ready to kick some butt and to take over this country with their business. Love you guys. Thank you. See ya.